presidents. We have two co-presidents for RENATE, Sister Mary Power and Yvonne van de Kar. And Mary will open and welcome the proceedings this evening, and Yvonne will conclude. So over to you, Mary.
Thank you very much, Anne. I apologise profusely. I swear every time I need a machine, it knows I need it and it decides to do something crazy on me. So I'm sorry, my camera has decided to go on the blink. Anyway, good afternoon and welcome to all our participants today. On behalf of the core group, the working board and the Law Task Group of RENATE, along with St Mary's University, we're very happy to launch this report. I cannot overestimate the work of the members of the Law Task Group with the researchers of St Mary's University. I think it's a seminal piece of work which we hope will give rise to other such research in the countries of Europe, apart from the 5 already listed today: Albania, Bulgaria, Romania, Spain, and the UK. Now, sorry, in the middle of this, I'm conscious of people translating, so I'll slow down. On reading the report, you will see the depth of work which has gone into each country, and we are proud and honoured to present this report to you today. We know that the members of RENATE and others in the various countries where the research has taken place will find it useful and informative. We also hope that it will give impetus to the work of providing legal services to survivors of human trafficking in Europe today and going forwards. So congratulations to all involved. And let's hope we have a good webinar. Okay, Anne, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. That was a lovely, warm welcome, as always. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Brian O'Toole, who leads the Law Research Task Group. This is one of 11 task groups in the RENATE network, and it's been a particularly busy task group working on this seminal piece of research, as Mary has said. Brian is going to speak to the work of the Law Task Group, which comprises of, I think, about a dozen people or so across the RENATE network. And Brian is the country representative from Ireland on the RENATE Working Board. He works with the Presentation Sisters at their Interprovincial Justice Desk, and brings a wealth of experience, wisdom, and good practical sense to bear on all of our work and gatherings, be they in Apt Ireland or at RENATE. So over to you, Brian, to share with us and speak to the work.
Thank you indeed, Anne, and you promoted me. I think I'm just one of the members of the Law Task Group. There are quite a few of us, but what I'm going to do is just wanted to share one photograph with everybody. I hope you can see this. This is the photograph of the sculpture, Let the Oppressed Go Free. And I've had a number of occasions during the last week or two really to kind of reflect on this in a number of different scenarios. And I just thought it would be extremely suitable today. So firstly, I wanted to thank everybody for their support in turning up today, and to say, as Mary had done, that we're very proud of the work that has been undertaken with the Bakita Centre in St Mary's University. That has culminated in the launch of this, what we would think is a very substantial report. This statue, Let the Oppressed Go Free, by Timothy Schmalz. As I said, I have had time to reflect on it, but I just thought today it strikes me that when Bakita sets the survivors free, to whom do they rush? And if you look at the statue or look at the sculpture, there are over 100 survivors in it. Survivors in so many ways and for so many reasons. Children some, but men and women also. It seems to me that when Bakita lifts the lid to freedom, they rush in what looks like a wave to freedom. But what next for the survivors when they are free? Who will help them navigate a system that they don't understand? Perhaps in a language they don't know, and maybe even paralyzed by the trauma of their experience, and all with the fear that they may be in real trouble, knowing that for them, they may not want to go home at all. Very often, it is the legal practitioners who are the first to meet a survivor in any official capacity, and how they do what they do matters. It matters an awful lot, and this report looks at their role, their training, their state supports, but it also reflects on their generosity of heart. Online today, we have many of the RENATE Law Task Group members, sisters and friends working for survivors. They have been the driving force behind this report today. And in case you're not aware, RENATE stands for the Religious in Europe Networking Against Trafficking and Exploitation. And it is precisely this networking that has brought us to where we are today. This report builds on previous research that was undertaken just before COVID, when RENATE once again commissioned the Bakita Centre for Research on Slavery, Exploitation and Abuse to undertake the report in 6 countries, 5 of which you will find in this report today. The new research is clear that those who are charged with supporting survivors of human trafficking or modern slavery very often do so without much support themselves. They work in challenging conditions. The work can be very slow. The caseload can be high. Training is largely absent, and sometimes this is for very little pay. In many cases, the lawyers quietly support survivors long after the work obliges them to do so. Such is the need and the vulnerability that they have identified, that they feel that to cease support would be tantamount to abandonment, even though there is no pay for this obvious and extra necessary support. The work is not attractive, nor is it lucrative, but this report alerts us to not only the importance of those who take on the work, but also the need for more to shoulder what is an increasingly heavy burden. This report is peppered with real quotes that give a real sense of the difficulties experienced by legal practitioners who speak to their experiences, but very often what we hear from lawyers is a plea for a joined-up system that trains, resources, advocates and supports, but only when we consider that the victim or the survivor is at the centre. One lawyer put it really well when he said, it's not just survivors who are negatively impacted by limited legal aid capacity, it is also those practitioners who advise survivors. They have to manage the heavy workloads and the pressure of being a key person in a survivor's recovery journey. They also have to make decisions about who they can help, and all of this can be very stressful. One solicitor spoke of the fear and the anxiety of working with often very traumatized victims of human trafficking, and that being so overworked, there is a real worry of making a mistake, dropping the ball, or missing something that can be catastrophic for the survivor, and that this would be one reason why a lawyer or a legal practitioner might lose sleep. Too many lawyers spoke of the complete absence of formal training on human trafficking whilst in university. Others spoke about learning on the job, which they readily admit is not ideal. After all, would you allow a doctor to treat you if he didn't have formal training and was just thinking on his feet? Some lawyers felt that this was the only way that they could operate. In nearly all cases, lawyers spoke of poor fees, delayed payment, too many cases, complicated cases, and very time-consuming cases. When lawyers are being trained, they're very often shaped and molded in such a way that their legal dealings with people are adversarial in nature. But when a potential survivor of human trafficking presents, there needs to be an empathy, a gentle patience, a willingness to wait until a relationship can be built, a learned ability to listen deeply, non-judgmentally, with their whole being, in order to be able to work with a sincerity for their new client. There is no training for this. In this report, one lawyer puts it really well when he said, what does it mean victim-centered? In a very short sentence, I would say the victim is the leader of all our interventions. The protagonist is the victim. So all our services, all our information, all our goodwill has to build around the victim. A lawyer's first advice may be around identification. This may be supplemented with immigration advice, housing advice, legal advice on family matters. After all, perhaps the survivor was trafficked by the family members. Who knows? Sometimes survivors are criminalized despite the guarantee that the non-punishment principle affords, and now legal advice can take the form of criminal advice. Sometimes the interest in a survivor and the level of support offered by a state is contingent upon the successful conviction of a perpetrator, and the support can melt away very quickly if the prosecution of a perpetrator seems or looks unlikely. So you can see how quickly a case can become very complicated and may require many different types and forms of legal advice. And all the time, this is only exacerbated by the utter fear of the survivor, who is now reaching out to a lawyer and putting all their trust in them. The lawyers remind us constantly that it is precisely this trusting nature that has landed a survivor where they are now. So you can see how conflicted a survivor might be. One particular quote from a Spanish lawyer comes to mind when he said, "Survivors of human trafficking in most cases have been deceived by someone they trust a lot. So they wouldn't invest the same trust in us. So from the beginning, the lack of trust is just part of the first meetings." This report has heart and has hope. And it clearly shows that there is a devoted and dedicated cohort of lawyers struggling to support survivors of human trafficking. They contend that these survivors can be counted amongst the furthest behind. The report comes with clear recommendations for each country, as well as for RENATE. And we're indebted to all in the Law Task Group and to the core team, and indeed to the Conrad Hilton Foundation for all their support in its preparation. When I think of the statue in front of you, I can see the fear, the pain, the anguish, and the trauma. But what I can also see is hope, and plenty of it. You've turned up today to learn a little bit more about what this report has to say. So can I please urge that when the launch is over, you'll take some time to download the report from RENATE website, read even a few pages a day. This would just be fantastic. And when you read the report, you'll feel the heartache of the survivors. You'll be heartened that there are good people who try really hard, without much notice, praise, or even proper payment, to make a lasting difference to damaged survivors. These legal practitioners are very often at the heart of pro bono legal networks, without which much work couldn't be done. And finally, once again, when you read the report, can I then ask that you will do one more thing: share the report and talk about it. Thanks indeed for your kind attention.
And thank you very much, Brian, for that very comprehensive, almost whistle-stop overview of the report itself. And I think one of the things that strikes me, and many things strike me in the context of what you've just said there, but that it's worth remembering again that this report alerts us not only to the importance of the work of the legal practitioners, but also there's an alert for a plea for more people to shoulder the work. And I think we're going to see that as a thread that's going to run through from the various speakers delivering this afternoon, that call to action, and also that call for understanding of the humanity of the legal practitioners who are shouldering a significant burden, being under-resourced, under-supported, and in fact we find many of whom don't even have training in the particular areas of anti-human trafficking. I think, thank you, Brian, you've instanced the array of advisements demanded of legal practitioners, expanding out beyond legal advice to housing advice, vocational training advice, and of course it highlights the fact that the most vulnerable are the most trusting of those who will advise them. So we owe a debt of gratitude to our legal practitioners who find themselves in this line of work, because it pulls at their heartstrings as well as their professional ethical work. Clearly, they're a dedicated cohort of legal practitioners who have opened up to the RENATE members and the research grouping who have undertaken this research. And we are very grateful to the legal practitioners who have contributed. And in this regard, I need to express our gratitude to RENATE members across the network who have banged on doors, visited, revisited, hounded, pestered, and plagued legal practitioners from their own particular countries to contribute to the research. And the 5 countries that are involved in this research, there is a network of angels, of RENATE members who have had to follow up and follow through to get this over the line. So it's wonderful to see that array of insights that Brian has given us there to whet our appetites for the rest of this evening's presentation. Thank you, Brian.